Well, I think it's pretty clear that it's been a natural expansion of a more western population. When you look at when the various provinces and states in the East recorded the first occurrence of coyotes, there's a very nice chronological progression from Ontario to New York to Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and finally to New Brunswick in 1975. It was not a phenomenon that occurred sort of universally across that region. And considering the ability of these animals to disperse, sometimes going as far as 150 miles from where a young coyote would move to set up its own home range, it doesn't take long for a population to expand with that kind of potential for dispersing. That I think it's almost incontrovertible that it did occur as a result of natural range expansion, which to the average person seemed rather phenomenal, and in many ways it is. There have been releases made. Animals have been brought in, not in large numbers in the Northeast, but a few have been brought in and released. There have been many releases of western coyotes into the southeastern states. Many hunting groups have brought coyotes in from Texas and other western areas and released them in the south. But even there, the development of that southeastern population has lagged the northeastern population by about 25 years. To what extent the Mississippi River has been a barrier or a filter to that eastward expansion strikes me as being a very likely scenario.
Well, the difference between coyote and wolf tracks are pretty easy. They look a lot the same, they're just real different in size. You know, coyotes being about this big and wolves being about as you can put your fist inside the track. The dog is real perplexing because they can really be as variable as dogs themselves. But generally, the outline of a dog print tends to be more round, whereas a wild dog, a coyote or a wolf, tends to be longer than wider. But it's pretty tough.
Urban coyotes create new problems. Interactions with pets and people are inevitable. Coyotes quickly learn to take advantage of garbage, pet food, and food scraps. All documented coyote attacks on people were animals that have been fed. Coyotes adapted to the habitat we inadvertently created for him, and their tolerance for human activity allowed populations to increase.
See from the foothills, shred of river glinting, trailing to flatlands, the city, glare of haze in the valley horizon, sun caught on glass, gleams and goes. From cool springs under cedar, on his haunches, white grin, long tongue panting, he watches. Dead city in dry summer, where berries grow.
Pups are born about 2 months after conception, usually in April, and weaned within 8 weeks. A limited study found eastern coyote pups are considerably heavier than their western cousins. Litters normally contain equal numbers of males and females and can be between 2 and 18 pups. Anything greater than 11 is likely to be a double litter. Polygamy may be common in persecuted canid populations, but is occasionally observed in species that are undisturbed. Double litters occur about 10% of the time in Yellowstone, where coyotes are not hunted.
And you look at overall how humans have tried to persecute and eliminate coyotes, and all the different poisons and traps and aerial gunning, all these different tricks that they've used to try to eliminate the coyote, and they failed. And those same kinds of tricks and techniques have eliminated species entirely, like wolves and grizzlies and raptors, and yet the coyote has tripled its numbers across North America during that same time period. And I think a real key to that success is they're real smart, they know how to reproduce given a little bit of food, they'll adapt their food habits and dedicate whatever it takes to bring off a successful litter. And I think the bottom line is why coyotes are so darn resilient and can withstand heavy mortality rates from humans or from whatever source is that they evolved in the face of wolves killing them. And so when humans come in and kill a third of them, it's nothing different than they've seen for 100,000 years in having to co-evolve with a larger canid like the wolf or a dire wolf that had probably inflicted pretty heavy mortality rates on them. So they can coexist with wolves. It looks as though they can coexist pretty easily with humans.
Besides low populations, red wolves experience another problem. Many of them carried coyote DNA. Red wolves and coyotes will crossbreed, which effectively reduces the population's genetic purity. In the 1970s, researchers gathered remaining red wolves from the wild for genetic testing. Out of 200 wolves, only 14 did not carry coyote genes.
The eastern timber wolf occupied almost all of the eastern United States except for the extreme southern parts in Florida and perhaps Georgia. But there's been DNA findings now which show that this Algonquin wolf, which originally extended its range into southern Canada and throughout most of the east, is the same genetic makeup as the southern red wolf. And it's the view of those geneticists that these represent two relic populations of the eastern timber wolf. There was a conference a few years ago in which some of the wolf taxonomists and biologists got together and tried to reconcile this, but were never able to come to unanimous agreement as to changing it. The Algonquin wolf is still Canis lupus lycaon, and the red wolf is still Canis rufus. I think the proposal has been that they both be labeled Canis lycaon, with canadensis as a subspecies for the northern Algonquin wolf and rufus as the subspecies for the southern red wolf.